Hi, welcome to Chapter 4, which discusses fats and the impact they have on athletes and performance. And in this presentation, I'll also offer some suggestions for healthy foods that contain fat. So you'll want to make particular note of those. Now, the overview for this chapter, what I'll be discussing are some nutritional myths regarding fats. How much fat do we actually need? The difference in good fats and bad fats. And when I say bad, I mean those that should be minimized in the diet. With examples, how do fats affect training and performance? And what kind of fats to take in before, during, and after exercise? So let's talk about some nutritional myths, first of all, regarding fats. Um, I just put a few up here, but the first one is that consuming fat will make you fat. The truth is, and you can actually see how people might think this. However, if you consume too many calories from any particular food, not just fat, you'll gain weight. So, if we take in more calories than we burn, no matter the type of food, you will certainly gain weight. And it's not just fat is not just the villain here. The second myth is that all fats increase the risk for heart and or cardiovascular disease. Now the truth is not all fats are bad for you. So no, not all dietary fats will increase the risk for cardiovascular disease. In fact, a study published in 2017 in the American Heart Association Circulation Journal found that reducing dietary saturated fat in the study subjects' diets and replacing it with polyunsaturated vegetable oil reduced cardiovascular disease by approximately 30%. This is similar to the reduction achieved by treatment with statin drugs. Now, the last myth that I have posted here is that the best way to lose body fat is to be on a low fat diet. Actually, it's not necessarily the truth, as reported in a 2018 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Um, this was actually researchers at Stanford University, and they revealed that whether or not you were on a healthy low fat diet or a low carb diet, the people in this study, there were 600 overweight study participants, they all had similar levels of weight loss on each plan. So there are several ways to go about losing weight, not just being on a restricted low fat diet. Now let's talk a little bit about the functions of fat. Now, according to our textbook, 20 to 35% of our total daily calories should come from fats. Now, functions of fat are, well, let me go back a second. And I wanted to remind you that fats contribute 9 kilocalories per gram of food. Now, functions of fat is to regulate body temperature, and they insulate your body and organs. And people with very low body fat can feel cold all the time. Also cushions and protects your organs. So anything lower than about 5% body fat will not protect your organs. Not very well anyway. Fats are also a source of energy for longer term, low intensity exercise. And when a person's body fat percentage is too low, it can decrease energy and subsequently their exercise performance. So we need fat for those exercises, such as if you're going to go and take an hour or two long jog to keep your energy sustained. Fat is also essential for helping your body absorb the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Now, there are definitely fats that we need to focus on consuming more than others. The unsaturated fats are considered the good fats. They have fewer hydrogen atoms bonded to their carbon chains. You can see the red arrows pointing to the area of the carbon-carbon double bond or the unsaturated area of the fatty acids at the bottom of the slide. Both monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats fall into this category. Now, in the 1960s, a study called the Seven Countries Study found that people in Greece and other parts of the Mediterranean region had a lower rate of heart disease in spite of consuming a diet high in fats. However, it was found that the fats they consumed were not saturated animal fats, but olive oil, which contains mostly monounsaturated fat. That's why you still hear about the Mediterranean diet and its benefits today. Now, some good foods that contain unsaturated fats are eggs, nuts, fish, olive oil, avocado, and nut butters. Now, both monounsaturated fats um, and polyunsaturated fats are typically liquid at room temperature but can become more solid when they are chilled. Now, which fats should I consume in limited amounts? The saturated fats and trans fats. Now, saturated fats are very common in the American diet, and the word saturate or saturated refers to the number of hydrogen atoms surrounding each atom of carbon. In other words, every carbon holds as many hydrogens as possible. You can see an example of a saturated fat at the bottom of this slide. There are no double bonds, and every carbon has a hydrogen attached at each bonding site. A diet high in saturated fats can cause high cholesterol, especially the harmful LDL cholesterol component, which creates blockages. It causes blockages to form in arteries of the heart and elsewhere in the body. Now, trans fats are also saturated, but they're done in an artificial way through a process called hydrogenation. This turns healthier oils into solids, preventing them from going rancid too quickly. And as of June 2018, trans fats are banned in the United States because they're known to increase LDL cholesterol in the bloodstream and contribute to heart and cardiovascular disease. Now, some examples of foods that contain saturated fatty acids or had contained trans fat prior to the ban are butter, biscuits, margarine, fried foods, potato chips, most fast foods, vegetable oils, baked pastries, and fatty cuts of meat. Now, this slide shows foods that are considered to be ones that reduce inflammation in the body and improve brain health. In addition, the fats in these foods may reduce the risk for heart disease. And you can see there are lots of healthy fats on the market, and many of these, including various types of nuts, fish, and poultry, also contain protein, so these foods can be considered a win win. Now, the salmon, trout, and halibut are also great sources of omega 3 fatty acids, which are important in improving risk factors for heart disease and for reducing inflammation in our bodies. Now, if you're not a seafood eater like myself, I don't eat any seafood at all. Not because I'm allergic, I just don't like it. It's important to find other sources for omega 3s or even to take a fish oil supplement, and that's what I do. Now, the following foods are those you want to minimize as much as possible. First, because they contain a lot of saturated fat, and second, fast foods and other foods on this list can make you feel pretty sluggish during exercise since fats digest more slowly than carbohydrates. You certainly don't have to eliminate all foods from this list, just use them in moderation. For instance, if you add a little mayonnaise to a turkey sandwich, it's really not a big deal. But if you decide to eat a supersized cheeseburger combo meal a few hours before participating in a sporting event or competition, you may pay the price in the form of GI distress. So some of the foods on this list, they should be kept to a minimum. Processed meats like pepperoni, sausage, salami, bologna, fast food hamburger, beef, bacon, mayonnaise, French fries, corn oil, shortening, and salad dressings that contain that are made of soybean oil. And how do fats affect your training and performance? Now, recall from the carbohydrates chapter that although carbs are a major source of fuel for the body during endurance exercises, fats are the primary source when the body is at rest or is taking part in low to moderately intense activities. However, the more conditioned an athlete, the better the body can utilize fats for energy at high intensity activity, so glycogen can be conserved. Now, the issue with the body using fats for energy is the slow rate at which ATP is produced using fat as the substrate. To use fats for energy, they must go through three metabolic pathways to be aerobically metabolized, which require oxygen delivery to your muscle cells. And think about when you're participating in high energy activities, that's when your oxygen is most scarce. Although the body can make unlimited amounts of ATP from fats, it's all a very slow process in comparison to the breakdown of carbohydrate for energy. So, how much fat should you take in before exercise, during exercise and after exercise. Now, this says slide 1 of 2, but that's not true. I was able to fit it all on one. According to your book, participation in a high fat diet weeks or hours before a competition has not been consistently proven to improve athletic performance. But contrary to what our textbooks suggest, I've read several recent research studies suggesting that long term, low carb, high fat diets, also known as ketogenic diets, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about that lately, these could be beneficial in increasing performance in ultra endurance sports. Of course, it also depends on the athlete and how their body reacts to it. Now, 1 to 4 hours before exercise, it's a good idea to eat foods low in fat, such as 1 to 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on toast, for example. Now, too much fat prior to exercise could cause gastrointestinal distress, nausea, trips to the bathroom, and you don't want that to happen. During exercise, it's generally advised to avoid consuming fat. And since our bodies have fat stores that don't have to be replenished after exercise in the same way that carbs and proteins do, fats don't have to be consumed immediately after your exercise or your sporting event. Unless you just want to add a little flavor to your food or want a feeling of fullness after your meal, then feel free to eat small amounts of fat. Carbs and protein should predominantly be make up the most of your post-exercise meals. There are some really good post-workout meal ideas containing small amounts of fat in table 4.8 in your textbook. Now, the days when fat was considered a forbidden macronutrient are being left behind, and in fact, sports nutrition experts are encouraging athletes to eat a diet rich in plant based fats, which may help reduce inflammation in the body, lower overall disease risk, and assist in recovery from training and events. And newer research is showing promise that consuming a higher fat diet 10 days prior to a carb loading period may enhance the athlete's endurance and ability to increase fat usage during exercise, consequently sparing muscle glycogen.